sending it live and gonna share it to a couple places real quick.
Okay. Great.
What tea did you go with?
I actually went with a grounded heart formula that I made. It's a tincture.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a Tulsi, Devil's Club, Albizia flower and bark, dandelion root, linden, wood betony, and St. John's wort.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So great. It's a solid blend.
Yeah, it's kind of a big one, but
yeah.
I like it a lot. Yeah.
Okay, shared it there. Doop, 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 doop. Health and wellness. Just gonna do maybe like 4 pages.
Sure. And is there a way for me to share it?
Yeah, so we're live on the Facebook page now. You should be able to find it.
Yes, I see.
And then you can just kind of click share, and there should be some places or ways to that, whether it's your own personal page or different groups and stuff.
Great. Okay. Let's see.
Looks like there's some people on right now. So hi, everybody. Sorry,
Hello.
Give me a second. We're just putting some pieces together.
Yes, technology.
Yeah. Okay, last one on my end.
I don't think I'm as technologically savvy right now. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. I got things set up over here. Are you
great?
Good to go?
Yes, I'm good to
go.
Okay,
cool. Awesome. Great. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks again for taking the time to just sit and talk about plants for a while. Yeah, I'm sure for you that they've been, a big part of your life. Obviously, plants have been like a big answer for me in my journey with mental health, and just kind of like a passion, something to is like a hobby that started out and it just kind of turned into something that I got really interested in. So I'm, excited to give some other people some resources and understanding of like how plants can be supportive for them. And you being here is awesome. So thank you so much for taking the time. Yeah. So anyways, this is Sarah Troupes. Is that how you say your name? Troupes?
Yes, Troupes.
Cool. She's an herbalist. I met her actually at Rebecca's Apothecary here in Boulder, and just off on a whim asked if she'd be willing to go live on Facebook and talk about plants. And so thanks again for your bravery and willingness to do it. Maybe, like we could start with just kind of giving me some understanding of like where you're coming from with plants and herbs specifically, and how they've supported you, and where your passion is for them.
Yeah, definitely. I also just wanted to say thank you for having me and for chasing me down and being persistent, because I'm really excited to share and to talk with you and everyone. So
great.
Yeah, I have been enamored with plants since I was very, very young. I don't really remember a time when I wasn't enamored with plants. But I've been studying herbal medicine for over 5 years now. And I've kind of gone all sorts of ways with it. I started with a college herbal medicine class. It was my last semester of school, and I had these free credits where I could take what I wanted to take and learn what I wanted to learn. So I took an herbal medicine class, and it was like fireworks went off in my spirit. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. I mean, it was just clear as day.
Yeah.
So when everyone graduated and kind of got jobs and was just figuring things out, I found a medicine woman to go apprentice with, and bought a one-way ticket to New Mexico and went to go live with her and study with her. Little did I know she was the medicine woman of the Taos Pueblo, and just an incredible, incredible herbalist, acupuncturist, wise woman. And so I lived with her for little over 6 months. And it was a very sort of like shamanic, kind of Ayurvedic experience where we were in the gardens every day. And she taught classes 3 hours a day. And it was just this really beautiful, like, time to connect with the plants as more kind of spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And worked in her apothecary and processed plants in the fields. And I did that for a while. I worked on other farms. And then I realized, okay, I should probably get some kind of science background and more clinical training, because it's, you can talk to plants all day long and hang out with them, but it's good to know a little bit more. So I moved to Colorado.
Especially in our culture. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's just helpful to have the full spectrum. So I moved here to go to the Colorado School of Clinical Herbalism, and I graduated from their 4 programs last May. So now I'm certified clinical herbalist.
Yeah.
Super grateful.
Nice. How long were you in New Mexico with that woman, did you say?
Just over 6 months I lived with her. And then,
wow.
Yeah, I ended up staying for about 2.5 years there.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's quite a bold move. Just kind of like up and go, one-way ticket.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Something was like, this is what you're supposed to do. So yeah.
That's an interesting like point with the intuition about plants. You were talking like a lot of work you were doing is kind of like, talking to them, getting to know them on an intimate level like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, yeah, like in the West and in our culture, we really want that science behind it. We want, our herbalists to have a very kind of like pointed curriculum that's like really specific and shows us like this, the mechanics behind why plants act the way that they are and everything. And I wonder, I mean, we don't have to get into this for too long, but I wonder like what you feel is more supportive for you in your journey of like learning about plants, like intuition and just trying and playing with plants and connecting with them in that way. Has that been kind of like a better route for you to become more connected and to like be better supported by them, or as kind of the other side being really scientific and like, okay, so this plant does this and this, if I take this amount of milliliters this many times per day with these other things, what's your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I feel like it's neither here nor there. I think it's such a combination. I feel like I draw upon science and my intuition all the time in my practice and with clients. I think it's really, really helpful to have relationships where you understand kind of the essence of a plant and can get to know it through the growing season and really have an idea of the energy of it, but then also knowing the science of, okay, I know that this plant works really well in this specific system of the body. It has an affinity for the gut, for instance, but also it's warming and cooling in nature, whatever it is. And this person has, a cooling constitution, and they could be served by this sort of specific temperature. So I think it's such an art and playful. And if the more that you know for kind of all of the things, you're going to be more equipped to serve people. I mean, I think both.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a good point. And I like totally find myself like so giddy when I'm playing with plants and like powderizing nettle or making something fun, and like it's such a great hobby because you get like cute little glass jars and stuff, and you get to like arrange plants in different combinations and taste it, and it's a great hobby. But more on like the medicinal piece of it, I think like a reason why I've seen like some growth in people's in like the legitimacy of herbalism and people like using that as a way of healing as like more of a holistic approach rather than just kind of taking a prescriptive medication or pill for something. I've seen that. I think there's like a big shift where that's like becoming more of the case. And I think a part of that is because of the connection that you have with the plant itself and like the ability to cultivate and the ability to touch and smell and taste and all of that and use your senses rather than just, take a pill bottle and put it in your mouth, and that's that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if you've experienced that there's almost this like difficulty to like silence the myths around plants, or maybe not the myths, but the questions or skepticism people have of like if it really actually can like heal, if it can really actually support medicinally in the ways and to the degree that like Western medication can. And if, you know, like maybe like why that is it because like plants take longer to kind of get into our systems before they start showing benefits, or is Western medicine just such a quick, like you take an Advil and in 2 seconds you feel like complete, you know, relief, or what that is. So yeah, I don't know. Have you noticed that, or what comes up for you when I like bring that up?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that.
Okay.
I have learned over the years to not be pushy about it. When I was a beginning herbalist, I was like, no, you have to try it, give it a chance. And I'm realizing now that I can offer information and I can share what I've learned and my own personal experience and the personal experiences of people that I've worked with. But I do think, yeah, sometimes herbs can take a little bit longer. If you have a chronic issue that, you know, has been going on for several years, herbs might not give you an immediate effect the first time you drink some tea. And so I think the persistence that it requires can often make people feel like maybe it's not as strong or beneficial. But there are herbs that can work within seconds. You know, there are these drop dose nervine herbs that work on your nervous system to relax you. You take 3 drops, in 2 minutes, you're completely relaxed. I mean, so it's, I think if people haven't had the access or experience with these plants in ways that are really going to support them in the moment and where they're at, then they don't know. And I don't think there's any fault or wrong with that. I think it's just exposing them, you know, and saying, hey, this is possible, you know, and I know that it might sound a little weird and strange that if you drink this tea that it could help this problem go away, but just try it. You know, that's usually what I say. I'm like, just give it a try. I'll put something together for you. And then if it doesn't work, that's okay. We can also try something else. So
it makes me think about like the intention behind taking an herb, or like drinking tea or a tincture, or, you know, like a powdered form of something. Like, what are you trying to treat, and like why? Like, and I guess this kind of gets into a whole like field of like psychology and Buddhism, where we're like talking about suffering and like, you know, are you fighting off this ailment or this symptom with such aggression, like you just like want it to go away, or are you trying to treat it holistically with the plant to like create a new relationship with what your experience is, like to allow yourself to be more accepting of what's going on, to like redirect, because you can't really sometimes control pain. Like if you have a headache, like sometimes you're gonna have a headache, but there's that second arrow in Buddhism that comes in where your resistance to that headache causes so much more pain. And so to me, part of this is like with taking herbs, it seems to me like such a more like gentle, accepting way to like bring on some support to allow you to be more smooth as you're experiencing a symptom, rather than like with a lot of Western medication, it's just like, no, like I'm not gonna have this headache right now, or I'm not gonna be depressed right now, or I'm, you know, not gonna be insomniac right now. I'm just gonna go to sleep and pass out and take this pill. So I think the intention and the heart behind it is also something that comes up for me, is that I notice like if people are using herbs or like more Western medication instead. Yeah, interesting. I want to say real quick, if anybody listening has questions as we're talking, feel free to write something in the text box, because I have that up to see, because I'm sure there's millions of people who have questions who want to know. I mean, when you mentioned the thing about a nervine tincture that you could take 2 drops and be completely relaxed, I was like, yep, what is that? How do I get it? Let's maybe start talking about like what, like how can people start forming relationships with plants in the context that we're in right now, like maybe we're like, what to you would be a good place for people to start? Yeah. And I mean, this might be a good time for you to kind of talk about like your practice too. And like, if people, want to reach out or have questions after this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I guess I'll start there and then go back to your other question of,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I do see clients privately. And so if anyone is interested in a herbal consultation or flower essence, I also am a flower essence practitioner. Feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to talk and see if I can be helpful in any way. I'm here and really, really just have an open heart, and I'm feeling really happy to be working with the people I already am, and looking forward to working with more people and helping connect them to the plants.
And I can add something to the chat box later, but where's a good place for people to be able to find you?
Yeah, so they're welcome to contact me through Facebook. I also have an Instagram that's at Heartlight Herbs is my name. And so that's where I'm doing my herbal practice kind of out of there, is Heartlight Herbs.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But what you were saying too about where can people start right now kind of connecting to plants? I mean, their front yards, their backyards, if you're going for a walk down the street. I don't know if you've noticed the dandelions right now here in Colorado, but they are just popping off. And personally for me, because I've been really trying to be as good about quarantine as I can, I've just been walking around my yard and noticing things blooming and noticing plants that I had never even seen before. But a great place to start would be if you have any dandelions in your yard that are, the yellow circle ones, and you know what a dandelion looks like, make some tea with it. I mean, super simple. You can use the leaves, you can use the flowers, as long as you know that they haven't really been sprayed, or, you don't have an animal that's doing things on them.
Right.
That's a great place to start. It's a great spring tonic, gonna help detox your liver after the winter. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Are dandelions, you said the whole plant is medicinal itself?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. The flower, the leaves, the root. Okay. Yeah. On my salads Sorry, go ahead.
I was just curious. It sounds like you said, it comes in kind of after winter as a good way to the timing of it sounded like it was kind of particular to being, post-winter, like how it could support the body and the immune system coming out of that time. And I'm thinking I wonder if that's kind of a theme, and I guess this is just maybe a light bulb going off in my head, but that plants are arriving and producing at the time that our bodies biorhythmically need them in the course of the seasons in the years. Is that true for most plants?
It's true for a lot of plants. Absolutely. Yeah. And
although I've never thought about that.
No, I mean, it's such a big light bulb moment. I remember when I first had it. I mean, it's just amazing. There are these intelligent beings that show up when our body can really use them.
Yeah.
And I love thinking about the medicine of place. And a fun game that I give myself, or I do when I go hiking or something in the mountains around here, is I'll look at the flowers and what's blooming and the leaves and the plants, and I'll say, okay, what is this landscape medicinal for? And sometimes there's a whole hillside that's just lung medicine, and just thinking about the medicine of different ecosystems is I could just nerd out about that. I just love paying attention to that when I'm outside, especially in the mountains here.
I have literally never ever considered that places of the earth would carry medicinal value. That's a fascinating concept.
I love it.
That's really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. And that makes me really just want to go explore more and pay attention to that. Like you said, a hillside that's just full of lung tonics and what that's for, that's a really fascinating piece. It makes, I want to get a field guide or something and just go really pay attention to that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And you can start
Yeah.
with just like the plants that and go from there and say, oh, I know that's a dandelion and that's mullein, and just start like thinking about it. I just love the perspective shift, of this land is more than just a bunch of random weeds. Like there's
Mhm.
medicine here, and kind of sinking into what that means. And then I can kind of go a little bit further in my own mind of like, oh, I wonder if there were specific diseases later on, previously
Mm.
that maybe cause these plants to grow. And
Yeah.
now we're getting to a whole nother sort of thing there, but I
Oh,
really
I love it.
I love thinking about it, because the
Yeah,
earth
it's
is
like
alive. So
totally, and it's
yeah.
moving and rhythm with what we're doing as humans and as animals and the rest of nature. Like when things happen, it has an effect on a place, and that produces something. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, putting that all together and kind of, is there a book or a philosophy around kind of like the heart of herbs, or the story of like where they come and why they arrive in times and in areas? Because that, if there's not, you should
Oh.
write that book.
That's a really interesting question. I love that
Yeah,
idea. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
I don't know if there is, but somebody should write that. I'm
yeah,
gonna think about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking too, like with starting taking herbs and like people wanting to get interested in like where our context is right now. Like
Mhm.
how would you go about kind of working with somebody on finding out what they need and like what would be supportive for them? Because like if someone comes in and just says I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling really stressed being in quarantine, um,
Mhm.
like I'm sure you could go a million directions with that. So how do you start to kind of navigate this? Because it's a rabbit hole that I feel like you could
Mhm.
just chase for a long time. And having access to someone like you is great because you can save a lot of time and money just by whittling that down. So yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know, how could people go about that?
Yeah. Do you mean like for themselves personally working on their own, or working with a practitioner? Just
Yeah,
to
I
clarify.
guess kind of, I guess starting off, like if someone's listening who has never had any
Mhm.
experience like drinking uh, herbal tea for the purpose of like
Mhm.
treating something or managing or working with something,
Mhm.
um, if they were say working with anxiety, um, like what would be kind of the first couple of questions you would ask them,
Mm.
to get them to
Mhm.
start thinking of like what plant to go with, and why would you choose those
Mm.
types of plants?
Yeah, absolutely. A question that I like to ask is, where do you feel the anxiety in your body? And when do you feel it? Because, for instance, some people say they feel it in their chest, or they feel it in their head, or they feel it in their arms and their limbs, and they get sore. And so, for instance, let's say someone gets rapid heartbeat when they feel
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. I feel like that's a really common one. I definitely get that.
Yeah.
Something like motherwort or hawthorn that have such an affinity for the heart could be a really great place to start. And doing something like a tincture would be really great, because you can just take it in the moment. And a tincture is an alcohol extract of herbs, if people aren't familiar with that word. And it's something that you can drop in water, like a little bit in water, or on your tongue if you're brave and don't mind the flavor. Um, but yeah, for instance, so the hawthorn and motherwort would be great for anxiety that you feel in your
Mhm.
heart. The motherwort's super bitter, so maybe 5-10 drops should do it. And hopefully you won't hate me because it tastes so bitter. I That's a something to know.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah,
Hawthorne, or not Hawthorne, but I think Motherwort takes like a pretty high alcohol
yeah,
content to extract, right? So that one itself
yeah.
is a little bit more intense.
Yes, yeah. You like that one? I think I remember.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah,
obsessed with that one. I take it like 3 times a day. It's been my lifesaver. I actually like did a wood burning art piece because
oh,
just needed to like connect with it in a better way. Um,
hmm,
yeah, so starting with the body, just like
hmm,
where where do you feel this, and then that kind of gives
hmm,
you as like an herbalist a glimpse of what to look deeper into.
hmm,
Because
hmm,
when I think about symptoms, um, typically that's not the root of it.
Right.
Like the symptoms
Right.
are, there's a cause that's something under there is like needing attention and needing support. And so
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is an umbrella term. Like it's felt very similarly by a lot of people, but the root of it's going to be completely different. And so
Mm-hmm.
if I'm trying to treat, I don't know, like insomnia or something like that from my anxiety with hawthorn or with something like motherwort, like it might not be as supportive as like skullcap or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I also wonder, like, do you ask questions to people about like what their experience is, or do you kind of mostly focus on like how it presents in their day-to-day life physically?
Mm.
Yeah, or like is it in their
Yeah.
thoughts and things like that too? Like how does that come into play?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is what I love working with clients privately like this.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I do an intake with someone, it's usually around an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we're going through all of the body systems, past health history, and emotional history.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, I mean, there's so many other things going on that are contributing to the anxiety. It's not just the physical sensation. And so I love to ask things about, do
Yeah.
you feel supported? Do you like, what's your family like? How do you feel connected to them? Um, how's your sleep? Just what do you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Like, I'll ask so many different questions
Yeah.
to really just get a full idea of what's going on with someone, and not just, oh, does your head hurt? Where does it hurt? I think it's so important to know if people have love in their life, if they feel safe in their home, if they have enough to eat, just like these things that are so basic but so important. And that's what I love too about the work I do with flower essences, because it's all focused on the mind, really, and the energetic and the emotional body. And so when I can kind of start to understand someone's thought patterns and the way they relate to themselves and the world and the perspective they're operating from, it's a really beautiful thing, because then I can kind of see, okay, well, maybe it would be helpful if they could shift to feeling a little bit more confidence in themselves, or, maybe they're a little bit too hard on themselves. And there's these other essences that will work to kind of help bring a little bit more light, a little bit more ease and comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, just asking questions to really figure out where
Yeah.
people's body, mind, and spirit are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
It's like you're a therapist, like a plant therapist. I mean, that's
Yeah.
essentially what an herbalist is. You have a whole intake form, and like, yeah,
Hmm.
it's awesome. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking about too, like kind of what plants are you passionate about right now, and like in
Hmm.
light of our context, like you mentioned, dandelion is something that's blooming, and that people can just go experience and on their day to day and have access to. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'd be curious to hear from you, like kind of what's something that you're working with that you're really excited about, and some other plants that are supportive, for people or clients you're having right now, that are accessible.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely loving dandelion, like I said, making tea almost every day.
Nice.
Um, I have a pretty sweet love affair with rose hips right now, which, for anyone who doesn't know what a rose hip is, it's basically after the rose plant flowers, the petals dry, they go off, and then the whole little thing dries into this little pod, which then becomes the fruit of the plant. And then that dries, and that's what we use in herbal medicine. And so they're really high in vitamin C and flavonoids, which are basically a constituent that has a lot of antioxidants in it, and kind of free radical scavengers. And because of how high they are in vitamin C, I've been putting them in my water and drinking, let's say I have my water here, I would just kind of fill it this much with rose hips, and I just let them soak in there for a long time. And we'll just drink it throughout the day. It just feels really good for my immune system. The extra
Mm.
boost of vitamin C. Rose is one of my all-time favorite flowers, favorite medicines. And so I love working with that plant,
Yeah,
especially
that
now.
vitamin C component's pretty awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
just let it soak in your cup. You don't have to do or worry about like extracting it. You can just kind of drop it in and let it sit for throughout the day and just kind of drink on it.
Yeah, you can. I mean, typically, like in herb school, they taught us, use boiling water, cover it, and your make a tea.
Hmm.
Um, that's going to extract a little bit more out of it. But because I just let them soak in my jar all day long, like when I'm at work, it's
Yeah.
totally fine. But if you're going for a little bit more potent, I would definitely use hot water.
Yeah.
Um, it's just been kind of hot here. I haven't really wanted hot water. So,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not the time.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about other plants. Oat straw has been super huge lately for me too. Oat straw is one of those nervine herbs I was talking about. So what it does is it acts on the nervous system. And what we classify it as in herbalism is a nervous system tropho-restorative, meaning that
Hmm.
over time, when you drink it, it's something you'd have as a tea. It can actually go over frayed nerve fibers in the nervous system and coat them and help kind of just create the smoothing effect of the nerves. It's also really
Wow.
nutritive. Yeah, I mean, it's like food. Like you really can't have too
Yeah.
much of it. And it feels like a hug, especially for this time when like I feel like so many people's nervous systems are fried.
Hmm.
Um, it's so yummy and I love it.
I I know a couple of these like nervous system plants. I think passion flower specifically, you can
Mhm.
develop not well, kind of a tolerance to, right? Kind of like
Mhm.
if you're drinking too much of it, it kind of loses its potency and effects. Is that the
Mhm.
same with oat straw, or does oat straw kind of keep its efficacy as you're drinking it?
Yeah, oat straw is one of those amazing plants where it holds its efficacy. You
Wow.
can't really drink too much of it. It's one of those, I mean, whenever you're drinking tea, you want to make sure you're drinking water too. Tea is definitely slightly diuretic, usually not a replacement for water. So that's how you could
Hmm.
probably, do a little too much. But yeah, I know what you mean about passion flower. It does not work like that, which is really nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always something that I'm like, one of my first questions kind of as a client working with y'all at Rebecca's, or
Hmm.
when I'm like just doing research on plants, is just like, if I'm taking this plant, throughout the day, is it going to have longevity to be supportive, or am I going to like only really be, experiencing benefits for a
Hmm.
couple of days, and then I need to take like double the amount to get there? So yeah,
Hmm.
it's just something that's on my mind that I like
Hmm.
to think about.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
because there definitely are those plants that they work really great in the moment and then they, maybe don't work the next time. I find that a lot with sleep herbs specifically. Like I'll
Mm.
be working with an herb because I definitely have struggled with sleep over my life. And it works really well for a couple nights and then it doesn't always work great, the third night. And so switching it up and working with them in different combinations, I think can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And things like the passion flower, I also think it's amazing how it can work so well. And then sometimes it causes a reverse effect where it makes you feel more anxious at night. So if
Mm-hmm.
you notice that that's helping, they're not helping, that that's happening, then
Mm-hmm.
time to switch.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny how, yeah, plants at different times can affect different things. And I think
Hmm.
again it comes back to me as just like the intention of taking it, and um it's almost like a spiritual practice, honestly, using
Hmm.
herbs, because like you're being mindful of how it's affecting your body. And something I really appreciated about something I think you said to me once when I was like asking you some questions a while back, was
Hmm.
that, do you ever try to just like put a few drops on your tongue of a tincture that you're starting to try, and just see what that does? Like just notice the
Hmm.
subtleties of it to see if it's going to be supportive for you, instead of just kind of like full dropper to the mouth, and like just
Hmm.
kind of going all in. And I think that that's a really like unique and interesting thing to keep in mind with plants too, is like
Hmm.
just to be mindful of their effects and to watch it, and to allow it to run its um, to be beneficial, and not just consume, because that's easy to do for at least for me. Like I just like make
Hmm.
tea and I just demolish it and don't really like enjoy it or like recognize what it's doing for me. And I think there's something really beautiful about that gives it more power too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the medicine of subtlety too. Like I think in
Hmm.
our culture, it's it's so normal, like, oh, more is better. This idea, if I
Yes.
take 2, 3 dropperfuls, it's going to be so much better than taking 5 drops. And I mean, possibly, depending on where you're at, but also, like you said, you can sit with 5 drops. And if you really tune into yourself and tune into your body and let yourself have an experience, you might be great with 5 drops. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
be cheaper in the long run too.
Yeah. That's funny you say that. A friend of mine and I, a couple years ago for New Year's, we bought a whole tincture from Herb Farm of kava root.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we were just taking so much of it, like just
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous amounts. So we would take like 3 dropperfuls, and it makes your
Mm-hmm.
tongue numb, and like it was just like a fun way to like just be silly. But I think like I at least for myself, I know my motive was like how much, if I take the more, like, am I going to feel more? Because kava has like that kind of like relaxing your muscles and giddy kind of effect. So yeah, that was like kind of maybe borderlining abusing the plant a little bit relationship, but it also speaks to that, like that more consuming, mentality that we sometimes fall into. I know I fall into with
Mm-hmm.
plants, especially when I'm like really, really, really anxious, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, put the passion flower on. I'm gonna drink this, and I just like let the longer it sits in the hot water, the more effect it's gonna have, or the more plant I put in, the stronger it'll
Mm-hmm.
be. And yeah, I think my like kind of manic approach of making it makes me more anxious rather than like
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the tea and experiencing the herb in a way that's going to be supportive. So kind of on me there, why I have a negative effect. Um, yeah. So what else are some plants that could be helpful? And I mean, maybe thinking also about like protecting our like respiratory systems. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if there are plants that we could be like, if it's tincture form or tea or decoctions or anything that we could be drinking to help support us with COVID and specific symptoms of like, what is the cyto storm cyto
Oh, the
you know
cytokine storm.
yeah, that thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if
Oh,
there's
that
plants
thing.
that support with that monster.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think nettles are a great way to go right now.
Yeah.
They're just an overall system tonic. And they also do work really well at tonifying the lungs. They're astringent, so it's good to take them with something like marshmallow or slippery elm that's going to be a little bit more moistening because they're so drying to your system.
Mm-hmm.
But they are just so building and nutritive, and are really going to help with the lung function. I
Yeah.
also, I really have been loving elecampane recently. It's something that I would use in a protocol if if I personally had COVID, because what it does is it kind of helps dilate your bronchioles. And if there's fluid or things or phlegm stuck kind of in your lower lungs, it can help pull it up and out and expectorate. So elecampane is a really great one. I do like a long steep of that one. I haven't been able to, I haven't made it into a tincture myself, and I haven't found it as one.
Mm.
But I feel like that's a really great one to have if somebody does end up kind of having fluid in their lungs.
And that's called Elecampe.
Elecampane, it's
Campaign.
ELECAMPANE.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great one. It tastes really interesting too. It's a
Mm.
root, but yeah, if I ever feel stressed too, and I notice like my chest just feels tight, and it might just be anxiety or it's COVID, which luckily is not, as far as I know. I'll just
Yep.
put some in my tea, and it just like,
Nice.
like creates more space. So that's a great one to have.
Mm.
Also, just like I mentioned before, marshmallow root and slippery elm, which is bark. COVID, from what I've heard, I don't have, personal experience from having it. I do,
Sure.
however, have coworkers that had it.
Oh, wow.
And they're fine. They're great.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. Thank goodness for herbs, because that's what they
Yeah.
used
Nice. Awesome.
exclusively.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. but they mentioned how drying of a virus it was and how they felt their lungs dry up and like really their whole system.
Hmm.
So things like marshmallow root and slippery elm would be really great to have around. And they're really interesting because they like a cold water tea. So what that means is you would put your herbs in a jar or a mug, whatever you're using, and then you cover them with
Hmm.
just room temperature water and do a long steep, a couple hours to overnight if you can.
Huh. So like kind of like put it in a mason jar, some like tap water, and go to sleep and wake up in the morning and
Mm-hmm.
you got it ready to go.
Yep, exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
nice.
It's
Awesome.
interesting, yeah, because the specific constituents, like the polysaccharides that are in those plants, just like cold water, and you can pull more out than with the hot. So
Huh.
they're fun like that.
It's kind of frustrating to me that plants don't have just an across the board like way to get the most out of them, because I just want to have this like cut and dry 50% alcohol, like that's all, they all take the same thing, like all of them at
Mm-hmm.
175, but they all just like
Yeah.
one at 212 gets the most constituents, and this one with like an 83% alcohol base gets the most.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh,
a
I
little
know.
frustrating.
I
But it's
know.
fun. It's fun. It's good. It's a nice hobby.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes too,
It's
you
definitely
know?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know. It's kind of like what they're like people, we're all different. We all need a little bit of different kind of styles of communication or
Yep.
support or whatever,
Exactly.
food. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Do you, real quick, is burdock the same way with the cold? Do you know? That was a plant that a friend of mine had
Mm.
been taking for a while, kind of doing the same thing with marshmallow. She would put it in a mason jar and like let it steep overnight. And I didn't know if, because burdock's more of like a root, kind of like
Hmm.
harder. So I didn't know if that also might have the same um, sort of story where it's the colder water pulls it out better.
Yeah, that one actually likes hot water.
It does like hot
It
water.
does
Okay.
like hot water, a nice simmer or a really long steep. You're going to get more medicine if you do simmer those harder, denser roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's really high in inulin. So that constituent likes to be simmered. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Hmm.
Well, great. Maybe a couple more herbs before
Hmm.
I let you go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna like
sure.
hold you here while I got you. This is amazing. I'm loving
Oh,
every second of it.
oh, me too. This
um,
is fun.
good, good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So like in terms of sleep, I know you mentioned that sleep has been
Mm.
something that you've worked with for yourself. Um, and I know for myself, like a lot of restlessness right now, especially at night, because I'm
Hmm.
in my house all day and I'm doing the same things that I'm doing at night when I'm going to bed as I do at like 2 in the afternoon. So there's not that like
Mm.
uh, ritual that I normally have in my day-to-day life that kind of tells my body like it's bedtime. So I've been really like looking for support with sleep too. And
Hmm.
I'm sure that is something. I mean, sleep is so important to everything, our immune system, our emotional well-being, our mental health. So yeah, let maybe a couple herbs about that are supportive for healthy sleep cycles.
Yeah, absolutely. One that I have found that has been so helpful for me personally is skullcap. I
Mm-hmm.
love skullcap specifically as a tea for sleep because you're going to pull out different constituents in a tincture versus a tea. The tea is way more sedative in comparison to the tincture. And that's something that it also falls into the category of a nervous system tropho-restorative, just like oat straw.
Mm-hmm.
So is really best used over time. Um, and that one, honestly, I'll start what's called pulse dosing. So basically, I'll make myself maybe like, this much tea. This is around a quart or so.
Mm-hmm.
And start drinking it either with dinner or after dinner and just kind of let my body start to kind of ease into this relaxation mode. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll just continue drinking it throughout the evening. Sometimes it gets to the point where I like physically cannot stay awake anymore, but it's just starting
Wow.
a little bit earlier. Yeah. Which is a dream for me, someone who's struggled with insomnia. It's the best.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
forced sleep. It's great.
yeah, totally. Sometimes you just need to put yourself down,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
um,
Absolutely.
yeah. And especially now. But yeah, the pulse dosing. So really starting earlier and starting, at dinner time and then maybe like an hour before you go to bed. And then if you're someone who wakes up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, then, maybe stop then and switch to a tincture. But I also really love the commonly, known and loved chamomile. It has an affinity for people who are restless and for kind of the emotional state that doesn't want to be soothed. It's great for kids in that sense too, because like when they're no, I don't need this. I don't want anything. And nothing's going to help. It's just really great for that sort of state. I know for me, sometimes I get in these states at night where like, oh, I don't think I'm going to sleep. It's just not going to happen. I can feel it. I ran too late and now my endorphins are going, and I take some chamomile and it's like, shh, just stop that.
Wow.
Tried and true. I mean, that plant is amazing. And then another one. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say with skullcap, is there a specific like type you use? Because in my own like looking, I've noticed there's like Japanese skullcap and there's a few different types. Is there one that you like more than others, or just kind of across the board, any species of skullcap is really solid?
Yeah, I typically do more of the American skullcap, which is the Latin name is Scutellaria lateriflora or Floria. So it's something like that.
5 times fast.
Yeah. Oh, sounds like a spell. But yeah, I really have mainly worked with that one, the Scutellaria lateriflora. But yeah, I really love that one. And I didn't say, I should have mentioned this part. That plant is also really specific where when you're making a tea, you don't want to use scalding, boiling water. You want to boil your water and let it come down for a few minutes and then cover it. Because if you're using that really, really hot water, it's going to burn off those really sedative constituents. So skullcap is interesting in that way. So just not boiling, but
yeah. And I see someone just wrote a question asking about linden tea for sleep. Is that something that I remember you or someone else at Rebecca's was really excited about linden tea or linden berries, I guess, because they grow here in Colorado, I think, right?
They do, yeah. And they grow really close to where Rebecca's is too.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, me and my coworker and best friend Lauren, she's also very, very in love with linden. So it could have been either of us.
Nice. Okay, great.
Yeah, but linden is amazing. It's interesting because they use it in Europe for colds and kind of feverish states. We don't we don't necessarily work with it like that in more kind of North American herbalism, but it's amazing for colds and coughs. It's deeply settling for the immune system. I said that wrong. I meant to say nervous system. Deeply,
gotcha.
I'm tired.
Right.
I'm getting tired.
It's
okay. Deeply settling for the nervous system. It's cooling, it's slightly moistening. It's just, that also really feels like an herbal hug. It has this kind of sweet flavor. It isn't as profoundly sedative as like a passion flower or skullcap, which is why I like it, because it can be really great for anxiety during the day too.
Gotcha.
So I like that one for if you're going for it for sleep specifically. I like mixing it with like a little bit harder hitting sedatives just to make sure you get your sleep.
Is there risk at all with linden berries? Like I feel like, and I might be totally off on this, but I feel like I remember reading something that too much of it might be not bad for your heart, but it could maybe like cause some issues or things like that. Have you heard about that at all, or am I thinking of something else?
I know that it can certainly lower your blood pressure if you take a lot of it. I don't exactly know about what you're talking about with being related to the heart, but I could see if you're someone who already has low blood pressure and you take a lot of it, how that could be problematic. But I have low blood pressure generally, and I take it and I'm usually fine. If I drink a cup or two of tea. So
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, like I said, I really could keep you on for like another few hours, but you've had a long day and we've covered quite a bit, but maybe we should, at some point in the future do this again, because there's a whole other world of things to talk about plants. I mean, we've literally, I think, mentioned maybe 15 to 20 herbs, and that's just scratching the surface of the world that that's here. But before I let you go, I was curious if there's, like one plant that like is just your favorite ever, or like if you have a herb that you kind of like hold to this esteem that's like the love of your life.
Oh my gosh. I love this question. It's so challenging.
Yeah, I know. It always is.
Oh gosh. I would have to say, I think I mentioned earlier, but rose. I adore rose. I mean, I adore all roses, and it's interesting because I've always had this relationship with this plant of just like deep, deep love and admiration. And when I graduated from the clinical portion of herb school, our clinic director gives each person an herb that they think kind of describes their personality and their energy and how they are in the world. And they gave me rose. And so it just was this other, this other confirmation of like, this is one of your friends.
That's the one.
Yeah. Such good heart medicine. Such
nice.
Powerful heart medicine. Yeah.
And accessible too. Like it's not a hard thing to find,
Exactly. I love that about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe one more time, just let people know where they can find, support from you, and like a website, or however they can reach out if people have questions or want to get some consulting on herbs. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you for that. So you're more than welcome to contact me on Facebook. My name is Sarah Troupes. I imagine it's somewhere around this video. And then my Instagram for my herbal business is Heartlight Herbs. It's HEARTLIGHT herbs.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take time to talk with people and consult. We can do flower essences, we can do herbs, we can do both. I also do, I can go through supplements and kind of see what you're taking and maybe what is going to be more or most appropriate in regards to that. So yeah, we can talk about nutrition. There's so many things, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to be a bug on a wall. I mean, I'll get my own consulting, because I just love talking about it. I love coming into the apothecary that y'all work at and just like asking questions. And I always find out, about a different herb or something that I had no idea about before. And then I take it and, it works. So it's fun. Well, great. Thank you again so much for the time. I've just been like noticing, on our Facebook feed here is lots of people coming in and out and showing, hearts and thumbs ups and appreciation in that. So thank you again. And I'm sure that, you've really been able to support and give love to some people through this. So thank you for the time. And I know you've had a long day, so thanks for powering through.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored and really grateful to share just the little bits that I know. So thank you for your great questions too. This has been really fun, really easy conversation. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Anytime. I'll talk about them all day. I'm sure you will too.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody for watching. And reach out if there's any way we can support you. And if you have an offering yourself that you want to step in with, we will get through this. Let us know. And be well. Bye, everybody.